in. Once again, open line Q&A. If you're new here, you want to tap into some of my free trainings. Make sure you click the link in the description, or you can tap into the link in the description of some of the other videos on the channel, and you can tap right into the free trainings. Hop on the calendar. We can talk one-on-one about how to get you started if you're not already in the master class. Today we're going to do a open line Q&A, but also just a winter update where we talk about where the market is. The winter is coming. It's kind of, I mean, if you're a Games of Thrones, it's funny, but also the winter is coming. Right now, especially if you're in the Northeast market, it's getting cold. There are a lot of people dropping out of the market for a variety of reasons, including rates going up, people thinking there's a recession. There are some other different macro factors that are going on that we're going to talk about, and all of this is just creating a unique opportunity for investors to come in and grab some properties at unbelievable kind of once in a lifetime pricing. So as you stay tapped in with this market, you'll start to see these opportunities. Um, some of the questions I get, I kind of will jot down over the course of a week. A lot of questions will get thrown at me, and some are very deal specific, but some are kind of broader. And it's important to talk about, like, what's going on in the general market. You have to I'm a very micro focused investor. Like, I like to invest in certain municipalities, and the strategies that can be extremely profitable in certain areas, they're specific to the municipality. So you want to stay micro, but you need to understand the macro trends, like what's going on around you. Like, how will the market respond? How will the people who buy debt respond in certain market conditions? This is important if you're in a burst strategy, and at some point you're going to leverage a cash out refinance. If you're going to do a cash out refi, you need to know, with the people who are buying that debt on the other side of the transaction, what do they think about the real estate market on a macro level? Because if they think it's bad, they're going to not buy the debt. And if they stop buying debt, the market can freeze on you. So it can have an impact on your micro level investing. Some of the things, like, you guys, if you listen to some of the calls, you've heard me talk about how, like, the Midwest is the inventory is picking up. These places that boomed first, and during the, like, early times of COVID, because there were some macro trends in COVID where people were moving from the cities, from the Northeast into the Midwest, down south, downsizing, getting more space, getting more privacy. The cities weren't as fun to live in COVID. Like, New York City is great, and it's kind of coming back now. But in the middle of COVID, when everything shut down and you can't go to your favorite hangout spot, sandwich shop, it was just kind of like a ghost town. And then you're paying expensive rents. So it's just not fun to live in. A lot of people chose different alternatives. But those markets that people moved to, they're now getting impacted, negatively. And I want to touch on some of the data points there. Just add a couple more people into this call. So Phoenix, Arizona, Austin, Texas, Las Vegas, Nevada. These markets right now, for all the deals on the market, according to, like, Redfin.com, all the deals on the market have experienced, 60% of them have experienced a price cut, a decrease. If anybody else can't hear me, I'm not sure why Rod can't hear, but if anybody else can't hear me, jump in the chat. Wow, I gotta have more people in. 60% of the properties have experienced a price cut, right? If we keep going, Charleston, South Carolina, 37% of the properties that are currently on the market experienced a price decrease. This is a sign that inventory is picking up at a very high level. Let's touch on some more markets. San Diego. So these are all, like, out west, Sun Belt. 35% of the properties on the market have experienced price cuts. But when we go to places like New York City, so let's go to New York, let's go up to the Northeast, only 14% of the properties that are currently on the market have experienced price cuts. And that's more within a normal range there. So there are areas in the Northeast, like Albany is one of the strongest markets in terms of stability, pricing stability in the country right now, a Northeast market. And it's also a rural outskirt market, which is interesting. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. but you're seeing this trend from a data standpoint where the inventory is picking up out west in the Midwest and in these markets that were kind of the big boomers where all of these different iBuyers like Zillow, these companies that were coming in, and there are some smaller companies than Zillow. I don't know how, if I would truly label them small. It's hard to be considered small when you're dumping, $500 million into the market every year, right? You're not that small. But compared to Zillow or some of the bigger giants, they were smaller. They were out buying into these macro trends of people moving out into the Midwest, and they're just getting clobbered right now. One of the ways that they're getting clobbered is they intended to buy and hold and rent all these properties, and the properties are not holding up too well in this higher interest rate environment. One, because they took a lot of annual renewable mortgages out, and when you do that and rates go up, your monthly payment can go through the roof. Now, this was a known gamble, right? Rates could go up, our pricing could go up, but the rents will cover, right? The rents will just keep increasing because they've been increasing at over a 10% per year, like annual rate for a very long time in most of these markets. I think in places like New York, rents are like up year over year 15% historically. Well, wages have only been increasing around 6%. So when you have this factor, wages, in order for rents to go up indefinitely, right? You kind of hear this in real estate. Rents will just keep going up no matter what. Well, in order for rents to go up consistently, wages have to also increase. If you follow like global economics and US economics, our wages have not been increasing consistently or substantially for a very long time, right? So as that continues to happen, people are making less and less in terms of their buying power, and at some point, the musical chairs, like the music goes off, the game ends, and rents have to actually reverse and start coming down. There's some deflationary pressure on rents right now, especially in a lot of these Midwest markets where there's an oversupply of inventory. So oversupply of real estate usually leads to pricing coming down. And then you have, not wages not increasing fast enough relative to the increase in rents. So this is putting a lot of pressure on that market. So a lot of these price cuts that we're seeing, we're also seeing rent cuts from landlords to match wherever the market demand is. They're trying to find it. So a lot of these markets are just getting beat up, and the pricing is going to continue to fall. We're also seeing inventory building up in the outskirts of cities. So not directly in the city, wherever you're at. Just think about wherever you're at, listening to this, and whatever city is like the big city around you. There's a lot of inventory building up in the outskirt, right outside of the city, those rural type of areas. They don't have to be like full all out suburb, but if they're slightly more rural than the city and just kind of like a stone's throw away, those areas are building up in inventory much faster than the cities. The macro trend is that people are moving back to the city because they're getting called back to their jobs. The COVID kind of break is over. Everybody wants you, back at the job, back in the city. So that if you're looking for buying opportunities, you're going to see some really unique. I would say if you're into co-living, watch one of my co-living videos. If you don't know what co-living is, but there are going to be some unique co-living opportunities that a lot of us can tap into in the outskirts of the cities that are, our dominant cities. There are going to be some unique buying opportunities there. That's another trend for you guys if you're just, getting started and looking for different buying opportunities to tap into. I want you guys looking at that. The other thing I want to touch on is the lock-in effect, because I just want you guys thinking differently and thinking about some of these trends and what's going on inside of the mind of different investors. It's going to allow you to position yourself properly moving forward and get better deals. So we have the lock-in effect, right? The lock-in effect is where existing homeowners, people who already own their properties, they're not incentivized to really list their properties and sell them, especially the people who live in the more expensive real estate. So if you live in a $1.5 million house in New Rochelle in New York, you're not, and you have a 3% mortgage, 3% interest rate, you're not necessarily looking to sell You're not feeling the pressure because your rates are so low. You're not going to feel that pressure that somebody's going to feel if they're in a lower priced home and they're, afraid of going underwater on the mortgage, or, if you're just new to the market and you're looking to buy, you can price shop and do all those things. But the people who are in these existing homes in the more expensive areas, they're not really going to be listing. You're not going to see as big of an inventory increase in those markets as you would expect. You're probably going to see those markets be a lot more stable, because the rates are up, and you're going to see more of the buyers waiting it out until rates start to come back down from the deflationary pressure, which we'll probably see in like 2024. So these are just some trends that I want you guys thinking about. Watch this over, if you can, tap into the YouTube channel, and use this knowledge to your advantage, because not everyone is thinking like this. And thinking differently and outside of the box is usually what leads to massive profits. You only need one niche and one market opportunity to exploit for maybe a year. You can grab 10, 20 deals, just exploiting one opportunity for a year. And that could be the difference, for a lot of us, from being stuck in a 9 to 5 to being, completely out of it, and just building cash flow and hustling for a last name, not a first name, indefinitely. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. If anybody has any questions about anything real estate, I know we're talking about macro trends and all these things, but if you have any questions, even how to get started, how to build rehab budgets, where are the best deals, what are the best types of deals, it really doesn't matter. Any question is a good question. Feel free to drop it in the chat, or hop off of mute, ask a question. So any questions out there? Anybody at all with a question? Hey. So the question is, are people reluctant to go out in the snow to look for properties, or during like colder climates, or the winter, really? And the answer is absolutely. In the Northeast, which is kind of why there's the winter is coming title. There's always in a fair market, in a natural market, where there's fair relations, or supply and demand between buyers and sellers. You're usually going to see the winter, there's going to be a slowdown in buying demand, because the mom and pop buyer, the owner occupant market, not the non-investor market, they don't really look at properties in the winter. Typically, the kids are going back to school in September or thereabout. And by October, people are usually locked in. They're pushing for like year end. They're not focused on buying houses. It's a lot colder. It's a lot harsher. There's just more going on versus that time period between like March and then the summer. People are usually out looking at properties when it's warm. There's that summer feel. People are taking vacation. They have more time to house hunt and search. So you're going to see this market is all about liquidity. It's all about liquidity. There's like, people look at the market in some senses as like different markets. Oh, there's wholesalers, there's developers, there's people who own or occupy, there's this, there's that. It's really one market from a liquidity standpoint. There's X amount of deals that become available in any of those avenues. And then there are millions of dollars that get pumped into these cities every month in acquisitions, in new acquisitions and development. So when one market dries up, usually that liquidity will just pour over. So like when the sheriff sale shut down in Philly because of COVID, maybe 20, $30 million a month of liquidity just started pouring into the MLS, because those developers had to get more deals and take their contractors and keep people working and go elsewhere. So you'll see these different inventory shifts when the owner occupants sideline themselves. A lot of liquidity leaves the market and inventory starts to pick up. Prices start to fall because there's just less bidding wars, less buyers. There's less people out there. So we're seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing a lot of owner occupants just sitting on the sideline because rates have doubled, and that's taking your payment up substantially for a lot of people. Their payment would have been, $2,000 a month. Now it's $3,000 a month, and that sidelines a lot of investors. So you're seeing a lot of people, not only because it's cold, but because rates are rising, and they want to see if there's a top, where's the ceiling, and are rates going to come back down, like I'm projecting and predicting to a degree. So there are people who are sitting on the sideline and trying to watch and wait that thing out as well. But the winter, typically in the Northeast market, is definitely going to be frothier. You're going to see juicier deals, especially if you're going for like multifamily, and especially if you're a developer. If you know how to full gut renovate, you have access to contractors, those deals will just sit all winter. Nobody's going to bid on them. I've picked up 3-story, 2,500 square foot shells for 30K in the winter. 3, 4 of them that are multifamily zoned. And if you do that in the winter, you just grab one of those, you're gonna make 100K off of that deal. Whoever grabs a deal like that, a deal where you get a shell for like 40, 50 grand even, that's multifamily zoned, that'll have a ARV of 450. I mean, you're gonna make 100K just doing one of those. If you just did one of those a year, you make an extra 100K. So there's definitely going to be great deals this winter, which is why, while the owner occupants step out, all the investors need to wake up, need to study up, need to get ready. Now's the time to stay ready. The best way to get ready is to stay ready. Now's the time to stay ready, and keep your eye on the ball. Whether you're buying or not, you need to track the market, because a lot of what puts us in a good position to buy is understanding where the market is today. The best way to understand where the market is today is to have followed it in the past and know where it was. It'll just give you more perspective and more vision. So definitely there's some opportunities there. Here goes a question. How do I go about getting cost segregation, and can I do it over 3 years? You want to hire a accounting firm, and they'll partner typically with somebody who specializes in cost segregation. But you just want to have that. You want to have that done for you professionally. You need a team that does this. There are accounting firms that do this and ones that don't. So you need somebody who does. You do a little bit of research. It'll cost maybe a few K. I mean, you have to. It depends on how many deals you have and how similar those deals are. Like if for somebody like me, if I'm doing cookie cutter deals, like, if I'm going to go do 100 deals in a year, they're mostly going to be the same in terms of how they're constructed. Like I'm just doing 100 full gut renovated properties. They're pretty much going to do an average cost seg across maybe like 15 properties, and that would apply to all 100. And then I'll get pretty much basic, line items of what I can break down to 5-year, 7-year, 15-year, 27.5-year, and then you'll start to get those numbers cranking in. But you just want to get it done professionally. You have to find an accounting firm who does it. You can Google that stuff, and show them your properties, talk to them about what you do, what your rehab process is. They need to get into the weeds with you a bit, but it's absolutely worth doing, especially if you qualify as a real estate professional. If you don't qualify as a real estate professional, it's probably not necessarily worth doing, because you can't get the full benefits of it. But if you're doing short-term rentals like Airbnb, there are some different loopholes there that will allow you to get the benefits. Like it's easier to qualify for what will be the equivalent of a real estate professional if you're doing short-term rental versus long-term. So it's definitely powerful, and if you can do it and you're a high earner, you could get a 6-figure tax return. You can get massive write-offs. You can make $500,000 and get $500,000 of deductions and show zero income and get a stimulus check. It happens all the time. So that's a good question. Question: is it still a good idea to use the Burr method to purchase property given these higher rates? I mean, the Burr method will still work at these rates. These rates are higher, but historically, they're still pretty low, right? In the grand scheme of things. So you can definitely still do a Burr method. You just have to be more selective today than you had to be before. Before you could be you can kind of just throw any deal in the mix. You could throw any single family deal in the mix. Um, Prices were perfect, I would say. Pre COVID, like in 2019, going into 2020, prices were perfect. Spreads were perfect. Rates were super low. It was just like, yeah, I mean, it was running hot. 2019 was like, for some people, if they lived like the 80s boom, it was like an 80s boom year. Like it was just, they're just printing money out of and dropping it out of helicopters. It felt like, from a lending standpoint. So it's not as easy, but there are definitely opportunities more on the multifamily side, I would say now, because you need a strategy that will increase your cash flow, which is why learning about co-living, learning about some of these different strategies right now is so important. It's more important than ever, I would say, to understand co-living and how to increase the cash flow per asset. If you can do that, you can make a ton of money. You can make like buku money still. And the interesting part about it is if you're doing it now, um, while people are dropping it like flies because they don't know how to create more cash flow and operate in this environment, you run out of competition, and you just get that last man standing effect. So there's definitely still opportunity. You just have to be more selective. You have to understand your construction costs as well. So you can't be necessarily running into deals and not knowing the cost of construction or having that expertise, which is why I focus all of my masterclass members on that. All my people is like, we got to know construction. It's in there. Even if you're wholesaling, even if you're creative financing, you have to know the cost of construction. You can't invest in real estate properly, from my perspective, and I've done hundreds of deals, so it's a reasonable enough perspective. You can't properly invest in real estate without understanding the cost of construction and what makes that machine run. How much do the contractors get paid? How do you build budgets? What's the turnaround times? Once you know that stuff, you become invincible. You can make money in any market. And you can also do strategies like maybe you flip a couple houses and you keep a couple. So you start to get more creative in markets like this, and you make it work. Um, any questions out there? Anybody want to hop off of mute with a question, or I'll just keep running through the chat. But I'm gonna take a quick pause to see if anybody has a question off the top of their head. All right, we'll run back to the chat. Um, what is the path of progress and how do you figure it out? I heard this on many podcasts on how to proactively determine growth opportunities. I think I'm not quite sure what your question is there. I don't know if you want to hop off of mute and um, maybe clarify. I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. Cash, I'm not sure if you're still on. Or I'll run to the next one. Um, because I think we need to clarify that one. It's broad based, and giving me broad based questions, I could go on a rant for 30 minutes. Um, Here's another question from Samuel. We owned 4 properties, sold all of them, partnered on last property. My partner on the last property would not sign off on the refi, causing personal credit to drop to the 570s. What's the best way to quickly get back into the market with this flaw? I mean, there are ways. Shoot me an email. I have a credit hacker crash course where I give like my top tips and tricks for how to boost your credit score overnight, like really quickly. You can do things like the piggyback method, where you hop on as a authorized user on somebody's credit account who has really good credit. That could be a way to kind of bump yourself back up into the mid sixes and just correct the issue there. There are a couple other strategies that you should know about that can really turn your credit score overnight. Um, there are also like creative financing. I mean, you can keep going with maybe a different strategy instead of needing the bank and while you correct things. But I think this question actually it touches on like partnership. And people have heard me say this a lot, which is real estate real estate is a team sport from a developer standpoint. You need a lot of contractors, you need a lot of people, architects, engineers. You need the city inspectors to be on board and involved. You just need a lot of people to and a lot of leverage to really make this thing work properly. But ownership is a solo sport. And this is why ownership is a solo sport, because sometimes you'll get partners and things can go well. What I found in partnerships is the one of the worst things that can happen is that you actually have success. Because when things are going wrong, everybody's kind of like hands on deck, all hands on deck, everybody's focused and tapped in. When things start going well, that's when greed comes out. That's when one partner feels superior, or like this success is because of me, not you. Or there's like a lot of different attitudes that'll come out at times of success that you don't always even see during the hard times when you're building something. When something's already built, then greed comes out. People want to steal, people want to take, people want to do things their way. And you don't, when you're, there's enough to deal with real estate, with like the houses and the construction and all of that. Dealing with attitudes from partners can be so draining, because it has nothing to do with with the actual development process, with the fire drills of real estate. So I found over the course of time and doing, partnerships, syndications, just working with a lot of different people, my best advice to everybody who asks me about partnership is just, you want to partner with a bank. Let them give you the money. It's cheaper than a partner. Most partners want half of the money, and then they become a headache because they want to do stuff like this. You're ready to do a refi, they don't want to do it. They don't want to. They don't want to be conservative. You're conservative, they want to be aggressive. You're aggressive, they want to be conservative. There's all these things. And truly, a big part of the real estate opportunity is to be your own boss. A lot of this is about breaking out of the 9 to 5 and becoming your own boss. And when you become your own boss, you want less people that you have to check in with to make decisions and do things. So as an owner, I think it's a solo sport. As a as an operator, you're going to need other people who are on board with you, who are tuned in, tapped in, and bought into the mission. And you can kind of get the team. If you're a team sport player, you can get that team sport energy out with your team. But you need to be like big dog and the boss, because trust me, it's usually not the business itself that collapses a lot of people. It's the partnerships that just break, because the people, everybody can't grow to the next level. Sometimes people crack under the pressure of real estate. There are I forget who I was talking to about this, but they asked me like, some people are really good. Some people are really good at like, I have a story, like when I was scaling up my operation, and real estate is exponential, not linear. So you start off, you're doing a couple of deals, you're doing like 2 3 deals at a time, and you'll have a guy kind of being serving as like a team leader, if you guys know what that means. The masterclass members should know what that is. They'll be like a rock star at like 2 or 3 deals at once. But if you scale up to 8 deals at once, or 10, and go scatter site, they're going to collapse. They can't operate there. They can't function. There are partnerships where that can function very well at 20 deals a year, that can't function at 40, can't function at 60. There's breaking points. This isn't. That's why if you've ever learned in like in calculus, there's like this curve, this diminishing return curve, where it goes way up and then it gets to some point and it starts to curve and turn down. There is always a breaking point and a sweet spot with investing, with how many deals you can do in a year comfortably and maintain relationships, family, and just like happiness. And you can go overboard with it. So it's really up to all of us to find that sweet spot and then operate there. But from a partner standpoint, I mean, the best thing is that it sounds like it's a smaller operation. You're seeing some issues with the partnership. You can correct it and you take that lesson and just go run solo. It's really the best way to go. There are more, horror stories I could tell you guys about partnerships, and how people will change up and pitfalls there. But and it's not something that you want to experience or need to experience. There's not much value in it other than learning about it so that you can avoid it. I mean, that's the only value. So here's some other questions. That was a great question though. Do you foresee the market in the Bay Area or Central Valley staying strong due to technology not going anywhere? Not really. I mean, those markets ran up substantially, and even the tech market. So here's the thing about tech: a lot of these markets were designed to lose money. The businesses, if you look at the business models itself, like I don't want to necessarily blast Netflix, but and I know they've made some changes, but a part of their business model was growth. And a lot of these companies' business models were growth over profitability. They were raising money during extremely low interest rate environments where money was just being printed, basically. And that money was being raised based upon their ability to show growth opportunity and to tap into growth. So they were just losing money. It's like failing forward. They weren't profitable year over year in that true sense. They were truly losing money. And now that that money is drying up, you're seeing a lot of these companies putting out like layoff notices. They're laying off massive amounts of their workforce, and it's happening a lot, and it will continue to happen a lot within the tech space. So when these layoffs happen to highly compensated, developers, computer programmers, engineers, they're not going to be able to afford that overpriced real estate, especially not at this interest rates, and nobody's going to be able to buy it at that price either, because now you're coming in and buying overpriced real estate at now double the interest rate, which is much harder of a hit on a $1.5 million property or thereabout than it is on a $150,000 row home in Philly in the Northeast. So that market is going to experience some downturn. The tech industry is not going to save it. Nothing's going to save the Sun Belt in the Midwest. It has to come down. And, as we go into a recession, which we're probably going to be going into, foreclosure wave, eviction wave. I mean, there's gonna be some rockiness, and those markets are gonna get hit harder than more stable markets. Another macro trend is people are moving out of Sunbelt cities and some of these areas back into like blue cities as well, because of abortion laws. People, they say like 50% of people want to live that are in those areas want to move and relocate into like blue cities with abortion laws that they agree with. We'll say whether anybody would consider better or worse, with abortion laws that they would agree with personally, and it's not in whatever state they're living in now. So there are a lot of people moving back to northeast areas because of that viewpoint. They're viewing it as more blue, and that's how they, what they agree with personally. And there's that trend as well. So there's some interesting stuff going on in the macro trends that all of it doesn't seem really favorable to the West Coast, the Sun Belt, a lot of the Southern Coast. It doesn't seem favorable from my perspective. So I would expect to see strong price pullbacks. And then when rates go down and back down, maybe in 2024, and those prices are lower, then you'll see people kind of buying back into those markets. So none of this is like forever, but I wouldn't project that it's just going to stay strong because of the tech market. But it's a reasonable question. Can I give a high level summary of what co-living is? I mean, I would say for a higher level summary, definitely tap into my YouTube video that breaks down co-living versus multifamily, which is better. I go into great detail there. The overall concept, and you can watch some of my podcast interviews as well, where I'll break down co-living. Major investors said the housing session. We can talk about that, as well. But co-living in general is just it's a thought process where like-minded people who are of a workforce housing background, so they're like driving Uber, they're working at for Amazon, or drive for Amazon, or working at Walmart, or they're just kind of workforce housing, maybe making 2,000-3,000 a month. Those people need good housing, and there's not really like a voucher for somebody who's on Section 8. I mean, Section 8 people have vouchers. Somebody who's workforce housing, they have no voucher. There's no low income housing tax credit that they're going to qualify for. There's no subsidy. Millions of Americans are living on their parents' couch. So co-living creates an opportunity for those people, this disenfranchised group, to come together and live under one household at an affordable rent for them, which is usually, a third of their income or less, but on a fixed utility type of a range. And if you can create that, which you can in most major cities, you will tap into a demand that's insatiable, is how I would describe it. But if you want a full breakdown, tap into my YouTube, Brian Loves Cash Flow, on YouTube. So Brian Loves Cash Flow, and you can watch videos where I break down the co-living in great detail. You can book a call. I need to drop that in the chat. You can book a call with me. We can talk, one on one about the mentorship and how you can tap into co-living, which a lot of people come to me for co-living because, I mean, really, there's not that many places you can go to learn about co-living. Not many people have done it or even heard of it at this point. But I drop my calendar invite in the chat if anybody wants to hop on the calendar one on one. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can just click the link in the description and kind of tap in there. But also in the podcast interviews, I break down co-living in great detail. But there are a lot of moving parts to it, so it's definitely something you have to spend some time with. Um, Brian, recently I've noticed HUD funding for the first time buyers has increased. There's a lot of money for down payments. How can we take advantage of this opportunity if we are new to this venture? Great thing to point out. I mean, there's definitely a lot of money. The market needs to get propped up where it can. And one of those areas is down payment assistance programs for first time home buyers. So there's like a strategy there where you can do a FHA loan on a property, like a house hack. Let's call it like a triplex or a quadplex. So you go find a 4 unit or a 3 unit where you only have to put down 3.5%. And as long as you're at or around like the area median income or a little bit below that, which is not, it's not terribly high of a bar to be below. Like let's call it like 60,000 or 80,000 if you have like a household of three or so. Like it's a lot of people will qualify. You can apply for this down payment assistance with that's kind of local, so you have to make sure your municipality offers it. But if you qualify and you get it, in many cases they'll give you all of the money for a down payment. I mean, they give up to like 40,000 or 50,000 in some places towards the down payment. Some areas, if it's more expensive, like LA, I think I read something that said they'll give up to like 100K down payment assistance. So this could allow you to come to the table with basically nothing, or no money out of your pocket down, because you're getting it in the form of like a grant. And as long as you live there for X amount of years, it's like a forgivable grant. So there's definitely those opportunities, and if you tap into them, I mean, you have to do your own research. You have to make sure your municipality offers this. But if you do that research, you can, you can get a deal even if you're starting off with very little, cash. So this is definitely something where, you can acquire a property without even putting down the down payment. And a lot of people don't know about it. It's research based. Maybe we'll spend some time during the next call kind of walking through like an application for that, what it would look like, what are some of the things you need to bring to the table, step into the numbers a little bit more, do a deep dive across a couple of municipalities, because it's definitely very important. So I'm glad you touched on that and brought that up. Where would I say is an up and coming growing market within the next year or two? I think most of the best markets are in the Northeast right now. They're going to be stable. Prices are definitely going to pull back. You have renter demand. I love anything that's a sister city, by the way. So a city that is next to a big city that's a little cheaper than it. So Baltimore is a sister city to DC. We have Philly's a sister city to New York. So is places like Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. Some of these areas in Connecticut are really good and have good cash flow. I've also, I'm lucky. I tell myself, every day, and I tell you guys, I'm lucky to get to work with you guys in a mentorship capacity, because Some of you are in interesting markets like Arkansas and Louisiana and St. Louis and all these markets. And as I dive into the market research with a lot of you guys, I start getting my eyes opened, even the areas outside of the Northeast, which I'm biased to, and I love investing in. There are some markets all across the country that are just, I mean, crazy profitable. I would say Arkansas is one. A lot of the markets there are more profitable than anything I've seen in the country, and I would have, who would have known, right? But getting to work with you guys, I get to see all of these different markets and where the money is moving, um, and there are a lot of trends there. So what I found is you can make a lot of money, and there are a lot of up and coming markets almost everywhere. Where you don't want to be is where everybody is to some degree. Which is why even if I'm in a place like Philly, sixth largest city in the country, I'm still in the C class because not everybody's there. No one really knows how to navigate it. Most of the other developers are in the A class or B class neighborhoods. So I still go into the fringes. I always, in anywhere you're at, there. Once we get super micro, you can even be in a top. You could be in New York, right, and still find little pockets that haven't been ripe or like developed yet, and you can go in there and really still make a lot of money by staying on the outskirt markets that haven't developed fully yet. So it's all about just getting in early, and that's a byproduct of market research and just staying tapped in. That's a I think that's the best way to answer that. Any other questions out there? Let's see if I can pull this question off of here. We had a question. Here's a question: do you think the major investors set the housing recession to benefit? Um, let me try to figure this question out. Oh, like the question is the market kind of being set up to fail by whales like larger investors? And I would say no. I mean, I think these larger investors were wrong. I remember talking to a business partner 2 years ago, and I'm telling him that Zillow's got it wrong. Open Door, they got it wrong. I'm telling him like all these big whale investors, like they're dropping 850 million or more per year into the market. They're buying properties all in the areas we're talking about, Phoenix and all along the Sun Belt. Some of them are dropping billions of dollars, and I'm telling them they're crazy. They got it wrong. They're gonna lose all their money. They're gonna go belly up. And he's telling me I'm crazy. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. The founder's so great. I trust their vision, and they were all wrong. Not to like pat myself on the back, but I'm just looking at it and saying you can't just keep buying on the top of the market as a business model and think you can keep marking it up and selling it higher. Eventually, it's musical chairs. The music stops. They're going to be left holding $1 billion bag, and when prices go down 20-30% like they're dropping now so fast, they can't even sell it because nobody's on the other end to buy it because the market is different now. I mean, you guys have channels like me talking about this stuff, but there's other channels, um, and the consumers can go right on the internet. They can go on Instagram and get some game about when to buy, why to buy, what's going on. It might not be this detailed, and this in the weeds, but people aren't always just standing there to buy that bag at the end and to unload and make these hedge funds rich. So a lot of these guys got it wrong, and they've had to mark down the value of their funds, fire people, 20-30% of their workforce, and they're still not done eating their Wheaties, at this point. So I don't think it was like a setup by the whales. I think the Fed has seen pricing going up, and it's just time for prices to go down. I mean, inflation is crazy. Rents are rising year over year faster than wages. There's just been so much going on, and housing affordability has to be important. So once those rates go up, it started to just create an environment where housing is not as affordable as it should be for the average American. So rates up, prices they got to come down. And as prices come down, there will be some better opportunities and buying opportunities. The market always finds demand. It's just going to go down until it finds demand where, oh, this is affordable now, even at this higher rate. And then it'll readjust, or the bank will adjust and they will create mortgages that are longer in duration. Hey, we got a 40-year fix. Hey, we got down payment assistance. I mean, you're starting to see markets are adjusting already, right? They're not just going to sit there. Everybody's got to eat. This is a shark's business. Sharks have to swim or they drown. They got to keep swimming or they drown. Sharks don't just like stop swimming to take a nap in the middle of the ocean. It doesn't happen like that. So these lenders, these mortgage brokers, all these people, they got to keep making the money. So they got to come up with new product to meet demand, extend the mortgage term, more rate buy downs. They're going to keep doing it. And then eventually when the Fed creates the recession and they're like, man, we got to get the heck out of this thing, then they'll reduce rates. The deflationary pressure. They'll start to reduce rates again to find demand so that the economy can kind of get more of a lift off. But they don't want it to happen too fast. But rates will come back down. And we're going to see it globally. That's how you'll know, is when other countries start reducing their rates, then you'll see it. You'll start to see like the US is going to follow. We're usually a lagger in terms of rates. We don't increase our rates first and we don't cut them first. You'll usually see like this stuff start happening in Europe and different developed countries, and then we'll kind of react after the fact. We're a lagger there for some reason. We're a leader in other areas. So that should thoroughly answer that question. I'm not sure if there are any other questions out there. It looks like you guys may be a little tapped out. Once again, if you guys want to talk to me one-on-one, talk about the mentorship program, tap in. I dropped the link to the calendar invite in the in the chat. You can click on the description beneath this video and tap into the free trainings that I have for you guys to show you how to acquire properties for pennies on the dollar all across the country. You can see some of my ride along in action. It'll talk about some of the creative financing strategies that we utilize. So there's a lot of free training for you guys, and it'll keep you plugged in to the knowledge and to the calls. And that's kind of that. So I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions. I'll do my little auctioneer, going once, going twice, 3 times, and we're sold. So I appreciate you guys for tapping in on a holiday. We're going to keep this thing going. If anybody needs to reach me, however you got here, text, email, social media, DM me. You can get a hold of me. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. But that's all I have for you guys. Hopefully this was helpful. Definitely watch it again on YouTube. Brian Grimes, Real Estate Mentor. Signing off. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.